All right, so we're gonna go over life events for you guys. If a lot of you guys are current users, you definitely probably have used life events. And if you're having some problems with it, definitely make note of that and get with me and we can kind of discuss some things. But first thing we want to start off with is, what is a life event? So most of you guys consider a life event anything to do with the employee. So adoption, birth, divorce, marriage, that's what you guys consider life events. In Solarix, what we also consider a life event would be anything that's happening to the employee that is affecting their employment. So a salary change, job class change, a location, pay group. I mean, there's lots of different ones that could happen, but when these things occur, what are you expecting to see in the system? So if I am a full-time employee at building A and I move to a full-time employee at building B, are you expecting anything to change? Are you allowing them to enroll in benefits for any reason? Does the price of a benefit change? Sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes the answer is no. So what we do is we configure your system based on what you guys have told us to function accordingly with what is happening on the employee record.
The one thing I'm going to point out is on the bottom, salary changes. A lot of times we don't think about those things, you know. In our lives, we're usually told months later that there was a salary change on accident, right? We never find out right away. So in those events that happen, right, if you know there's going to be a salary change and it's a big group, remember, let us know. We'll get those uploaded. We're going to ask you, should we update the LTD benefits? Should we recalculate some other benefits that you need us to? So just make sure you work with us on that. I like to point that out here because we all forget that sometimes those salary changes, we're already behind the 8 ball getting them inputted on time, that we can help you out, get caught back up with some of those things.
Anybody have any questions about salary change life events or the salary changing, what needs to happen? A lot of times you'll see that we'll ask you back, do benefits recalculate once a year, like during open enrollment? Like let's say an employer paid long-term disability policy for that you guys pay for all of your employees. When we set this up, we'll ask you back, does this update on an ongoing basis, or does the carrier only want to see that one time a year? And so you'll pay the same amount on that self bill throughout the year, or do you have where salary changes, you know, in July, then another one in November, and you want your what you're paying for that employee to be up to date at all times? And other people's, we have a salary based basic life plan where maybe they get 2 times their salary, and that could make a huge difference. We'll need to know if you want us to change that throughout the year, one time a year. So we have what we call a standard setup. So we have section 125 life events that we know 30 days is what they get to do. And we know that when you have a baby, coverage starts date of event. And that's just, there's a lot of specific rules that are kind of unchangeable, right? And that's how those work. So we have a steel standard that we set everything up. And then what we do is, as you guys go along, it's really hard for you to tell us what you want to see sometimes until the event actually happens, specifically with the job class change, where you may say, yeah, we want them to have 30 days to enroll. And yeah, it just follows all the rules in the case. And so, you know, that's what we do. But then maybe you have a job class change that occurs and you realize, oh, actually, because they've been working here already, they get credit for their time served and they don't have to go through a new waiting period. So their benefits are actually not first of the month following 30 days. When they have a job class life event, it's actually immediate that those coverages happen. So a lot of times when we launch your system and when you're doing more and more life events, it may be to where we just start a conversation. You say, hey, I just did a life event on this person. It worked how I wanted to, but I don't like what the effective date was. So, and then we just talk about, okay, so what are you looking for? And then we'll go in and we'll fix that for you. So if you're finding that you're making manual adjustments to employee records right now based on life events, and you think that maybe if you're doing the same correction over and over again, then reach out to us and let us know. And we can say, oh yeah, all we got to do is just change this. And it just may be, you know, a lot of times it's easier once we see it. We're asking you questions where you're like, I don't know, or yeah, it's like that. But then once you see it, it's like, well, maybe it's a little bit different. Does that make sense?
She said multiple times in there, reach out and let us know. You're always going to hear me say, if I see an email from you that says, sorry to bother you, you're not bothering us, trust me. We want to make sure the system is operating the exact way that you need it to. So, and like she said, it does take a couple times to go through and know, okay, yep, I need to make this update because this is the second time it's happened that I wanted to do something else. So just let us know. Yes. So when you're doing a mass update at one time like that, we will work with you. Patrick's back there, so he's listening to this question. So he'll know that he's going to get a census from you or an Excel file from you that has the employee SSN or EID in one field, the new salaries that you want to show and what benefits calculated off in the next field. From there, you email it to us, we upload the system. As Lindsay said, we're able to then ask you, do you want it to recalculate short-term? Do you want it to recalculate some benefits? And just let us know that. We see a lot of salary updates being sent our way when I'm working on ACA. Because part of the report that comes out of ACA is affordability methods, right? So I'll send you a list and say, okay, these are the group of the part-time people that are showing unaffordable offer of coverages, but they had an offer of coverage, it's just showing unaffordable. And I'll say, this is the salary we have in the system for this person. And a lot of time, that's not right. They've had an updated salary. So we get those updated salaries put into the system, or we get the hourly rate put in that mass upload. And that fixes a lot of those situations. Granted, it's not considered a life event, but I just wanted to talk about that real quick because we're talking about salary updates. Good.
Yeah. Let's go back real quick. Sorry. I'm just going to touch on the parameters as far as the standard for 30 days. So we set up everybody as 30 days. They have 30 days from the date of the event for it to be entered into the system. And then once it's entered in, that creates their window. So if I had a baby on July 1st, 30 days from July 1st is all the time that employee would have to make changes to benefits. So if you don't enter it into your system until today, then that employee only has 8 days to do it. I have several groups that 30 days is not enough because they have so much going on, and employees don't come and tell you until day 35 when they got a bill from the hospital. And so you do the life event, but nothing happens. Well, nothing happens because the system is configured to open up plans for you to enroll in if you're within 30 days. So it immediately sees you're in day 35 and doesn't do anything. So yeah, you can add the dependent there, but it's not allowing you to make any changes to medical or do this or do that. And then you're like, man, what do I do? If that's consistently happening, we have several groups that have chosen to extend certain life events, if not all, and give it a 45-day window. Now, they never tell their employees that. They tell the employees, you got 30 days and that's it. But when they drop that off on your desk on day 30, at the end of the day, when you're getting ready to leave to go home, you can still process that on day 31, and you can still get in there and enroll the employee and enroll the dependent and have it backdated. So if we need to do like a secret grace period here, then we can definitely do that. So if you're finding that you're having a lot of the same issues, then that may be something to discuss. Or if you decide to do self-service life events, that may be something where, hey, it's not even on my plate anymore. You know, when you have that baby, you do it. And, you know, you can do it on day 10 after you have the baby. You don't have to wait till day 30 when you remember it. But that's another thing too, is those standard amount of days in there. And remember, the day 1 is the date of the event. So then if you're 1 day over, that's what it's not going to let them log in and enroll or even process if you haven't done that yet.
there's a way that you put in the correct date for it. Yeah, it could be at that 30-day.
Most of the
You'll see that in training coming.
Most of the time, you just have carrier issues when you're talking more than 90 days,
Yeah.
which. So we build the parameters in the case. So we know that on a birth life event, the coverage starts the day of the event. Then you would tell us for job class, and you would tell us for salary. And for each different plan that you guys have, any life event that would be pertaining to that, the system knows exactly what to do. So let's say that you have a salary update. Well, just because you have a salary update doesn't mean you get to re-enroll in your medical, dental, vision. But let's say it's going to automatically recalculate your long-term disability, but it's not going to recalculate your life because that's not what that carrier wants. So it's done by plan to make sure that you guys have exactly what you need. And every plan can be totally different.
That's the fun part of getting to know your system, right? When you go through a couple of these, and then you realize, oh yeah, this plan should do this at this time. Because when we're sitting down, if you guys remember your full process of going through a workbook, then you had to do this. There's a lot happening in that system setup, but until you get into it, something's wrong. But we're able to make tweaks throughout the year and throughout the process.
So same thing with when do benefits start, when do benefits end? The biggest one I see that when we initially start a case is job class changes and how those should work, and what the date of the event should be, and when should coverage start. And the biggest example I see is, well, we want, as soon as they change job classes, we want that coverage to end immediately. So my job class changed on July 5th, my medical coverage has to end that day. But then now you're saying that you want their new job class, you want them to go through a waiting period. So let's say their waiting period isn't until it's first of the month following 30 days. So what you're telling me is that you want their medical coverage in their part-time job class to end on July 5th, but you don't want them to get new medical coverage until August 1st. So when you see what the issue is there, there's a gap in coverage. So we have to kind of walk through those and review what you're looking for exactly, because maybe when they terminate employment, you want it to stop the date of the event. When they're gone, whatever. But when they're terminating a specific job and starting a new job within your company, we have a little bit different settings that we're going to set up with that.
And remember, based on some life events, you might not want to open up the employees to be able to change plans. So if you offer more than one medical plan, someone has a life event, you may only say they're only allowed to change tier only. Make sure you let us know that, because we don't want people going into medical claims then throughout the year saying, well, I switched plans because I got a salary change or I changed job classes. That doesn't mean you necessarily get to change medical benefits. Okay, so just remember that in the setup. We're going to try to do a better job of remembering that as well as we go through all these life event setups for you and your cases. This is I'm going to let you talk about it, but this is a big one here when we're talking with school districts and when things end and things like that.
Go ahead.
Oh, that goes, you go.
No, next one. They put the same slide in there 3 times on accident.
Oops. Sorry.
Okay. When should I enter a life event? Life events should not be entered until the date that they occur or after. I have people ask me all the time, well, can't I do it just a little bit early? That's a really, really touchy subject because, like we talked about, if you, let's say you term it, let's say that they're moving job classes on 8/1, but on 7/1, you want to hurry up and get it done because you're going to have a bunch of new hires coming in on 8/1. So you need to deal with this stuff first. Well, what's going to happen between 7/1 and 8/1? You could have where that employee has a life event. Maybe their spouse loses coverage. So they need to be put on that old plan, employee spouse, and they also need to be put on this plan. And remember, we can't do 2 events in between another one. So you also have that. And then you have where sometimes they don't look at the term date. So you sent the dental's fed over to the carrier, and even though the term date's 7/31, I don't know, the dental company didn't look at that and they just term the coverage and they go to the dentist on July 17th and their claims don't get paid. Then they're going to come back and they're not going to be happy. Definitely waiting until the event occurs is going to be the best thing to do. You don't want to do it too early, and obviously you don't want to do it too late. So you want to make sure that you are doing them timely.
One way to get around that is I hate saying this, but one person does keep a folder of just terms that I know of, but setting yourself a calendar reminder might be helpful as well. In Outlook, you can use reminders. You could do that. You could actually talk to your phone. Hey Siri, remind me to term employee A, B, or C at the end of this month, and that reminder will pop up. Because we all know once you get busy, right? It's tend to forget some stuff. You want to get stuff off your plate. That's why you're trying to get stuff done way ahead of time. But if you can just wait, because I've seen it so much in the last 6 years in my old role, where the HR person's like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it. It's okay. I'm gonna get all my terminations done for my teaching staff in June. That way I'm ready to rock and roll in August. By golly, there has been so many births that happen in the summertime, or marriages that happen, that you're rehiring people, then doing the life event, and you've created 3 more steps for you to do instead of just waiting to that month. So we're trying to do it so we're help saving you time and some efficiencies. That's why I've said it, and Lindsay said it like 45 times today.
So we know why we can't enter one early, especially something that's going to end coverage. But what if I enter the life event late? So for instance, day 35, they tell you that they had a kid. What do I do? Because I've entered it, I put the child in there, but it didn't allow me to do anything. What do I do next? If you enter the life event, you still need to complete the life event, like getting married, whatever the case may be. And if it doesn't open an enrollment window for you, like you're wanting to, because you've exceeded the number of days, then you can reach out to your CSM and ask them the next process or what the next step would be. Some of you have been system users, may know different things that you can do, but it's important to still enter that life event, because everything that you do on this system is ACA related. So you have to enter all this stuff in there. That way the coding on the form is correct. Because I can tell you, if line 1 does not go with line 2, the IRS is sending it back and saying, why does this person have coverage, but they were in their waiting period? So why is this happening? Well, because I just kind of went in and adjusted coverage and didn't do the life event because I ran out of time, et cetera. So you definitely have to look at trying to do it in a timely manner, and if not, letting us know so we can get it taken care of, and still doing it, but maybe doing some adjustments on the back end. What do I do if a life event does not allow someone to enroll? This is when stuff comes across my desk. They say, this isn't working. And I go in there and I say, well, by golly, they tried it 7 times. It sure is not working. Sometimes we have glitches in the system. They do system updates and stuff comes back and they find, oh, they made this better, but it affected something back here. And it could be a systematic glitch that needs to be sent to Ruthie's team. Sometimes it's just a quick, hey, we just missed one step in here and that is what is causing the problem. When you start doing stuff over and over and over again, you're essentially confusing the system. If you've done 5 life events in a matter of 20 minutes, the system's kind of like, I have no idea what you want to do at this point. So if you're finding something's not working, instead of trying to repeat it, then definitely get a hold of your CSM and they'll have us take a look at it. I will say that every single employer has their own set of quirky rules that you guys have. And so sometimes in your user guide, it says, this is how you do a life event. And this is how you do it all the time. But your employer may have a different process that needs to be done, because I may need to have you pick up this, this, and this. So we may just say, don't do this step. We're going to add this step instead. So an example would be, your employer has a spousal carve out. And the employee logs in and enroll. If they have a spouse in the system, it says, is your spouse offer coverage through their employer? You answer yes. So it blocks employee, spouse, and family coverage, because you guys don't allow that. They should go to their employer and get it, right? Now we have a life event that's come through where the spouse has lost coverage and they need to come on your coverage. Our system is configured that when they answer yes, doesn't matter what they do and go back and re-answer the question, it's still going to block it, because that's a safeguard for you guys, because as soon as I see those tobacco rates, I think I'm gonna change my mind. I don't actually use tobacco, right? So that's built in that you can't go backwards and change it. So if you have a spousal carve out and you have where a spouse lost their coverage and needs to join your coverage, there's an extra step. You're gonna have to go to the custom field tab on that employee record and remove what their answer was and save it. That way the system prompts a new answer and now uses that answer. So a little bit different, but not everybody has a spousal carve out. So, you know, it may not apply to you. So if something's not working, let us know so we can take a look at it, because we may have a different process. There may be something that we need to update. We may find out, hey, actually, what I thought was how this plan was supposed to work, it actually works a little bit different, and we just need to change the setup. Any questions about that?
That's a big reminder with those spousal carve outs and custom questions. If you're driving rate in any way, the benefit plans by a custom question, like you said, sometimes you have to figure that out. Say, then the prompt is the new way. It's a good reminder.
So we have customization that we can do. So it's kind of based on what you guys allow. I have lots of groups that it doesn't matter what job class you're in. If you were offered a plan during the open enrollment or during your new hire window and you waived it, you don't ever get an opportunity to enroll in it again. Doesn't matter if you were eligible now, eligible then, as long as you are not newly eligible for it, can't have it unless you have a qualifying life event. So if I declined it during my open enrollment, can I go in and pick that up mid-year? Or do I have to wait until the next open enrollment? How do you want those set up? So there's lots of different things you can do with that. Is the employee allowed to change plans? If I went from full-time to executive, do I have to stay in the same medical plan for the whole year and then I can change an open enrollment? Or can I go with this other plan because now the rates are cheaper, or now I'm making a little bit more money, or now this or that. So we can customize what they can and cannot do.
We see that more typically, more so in someone's going from, let's say, a teacher to an admin position where they get different benefits, where we have to allow certain job classes to function a little bit different than others. So there's ways to do that. Just make sure you're, again, say it for the 400th time today, make sure you're communicating that with your CSM and they'll help you out with that.
Same thing we touched on before, if they can change coverage tiers, sometimes we don't allow that where, you know, they can only change coverage tier, they can't switch from plan to plan. And touched on this a little bit already, but do they need to meet a new waiting period? Do they have to go through another 30-day wait if they already had a 30-day wait when they were initially, or can they just go ahead and start that coverage effective immediately? And it could be different for different job classes too, where you say, yeah, part-time, if they go from part-time to full-time, they were never offered benefits, so they should have to do a waiting period. But if I go from full-time to executive, I don't need to because I already did that waiting period when I was a full-time employee. Does that make sense?
In some of these things where, you know, opening up a little can of worms here, but it's easier to keep your life event set up very straightforward, right? Because you were having to manage it all on paper or all yourself before. Whereas now is you can kind of get creative with your broker and your plan designs a little bit, because now you have a system that's able to take those rules and actually administer them. So that way you can then have that freedom to relax a little bit and make some things more flexible for you and your team. Oop. Too far. You want to do that?
I think we've already touched on this. I'll touch on it a little bit just to review. So anything that job class, if we need to recalculate benefits, a lot of it comes down to talking to the carrier on what they're looking for. And our most common salary-based plans, like your long-term disability and basic life, those are the ones that we're really looking at, is do you want to report a new benefit amount, or should they remain with the same benefit amount that they had? I'm going to touch on the user guide. So the user guide has step-by-step instructions for every single life event that is set up in your system. And it tells you exactly what to do, exactly what page is next, exactly what to click on. And when we kind of revamped this user guide for the meeting, it's the same process that it was 5 years ago. And it's remained the same. We just added a little bit more information in there for you. So a couple things that I want to talk about just as a reminder, or if you're finding that, especially if you're currently using self-service life events and you're finding that employees are coming back to you and saying that something's not working. The first thing is, when you do the life event and you're entering the information in, regardless of what it is, a screen pops up with a list of plans. That means that these are the plans that you're eligible to make changes, enroll in, et cetera. And you check off the plans that you want to enroll in. If you do not select the plan on this screen right here, then you cannot edit it because you are telling the system, I don't want to make an adjustment to that plan. So sometimes if they have a newborn, they'll say, I only want to enroll in medical. I'll worry about dental and vision later, something like that. But then they come back and say, well, it's only 25 cents a pay. I actually do want to do it. Well, you can't. You told the system you didn't want to, so you can't edit it. So a lot of times when your employees are coming back and saying, I did a life event, but it won't let me touch dental and vision. Well, you can see on the system, it'll say birth of a child, and it has every single plan that they elect on their employee record. So if it just says medical, it tells me that's all you said you wanted to edit. Now, can we go in and do another life event and fix it and pick dental and vision along with that? Yeah, but that's why it's not. So when you're giving your employees instructions, making sure that you're aware that you have to select the plan in order to make changes to it. Another thing that I want to go over is life events are a 3-step process. They've always been a 3-step process. One, you have to do the life event and you have to sign off on it. Whether you are doing it, the employee is doing it, doesn't matter. Step 2 is re-enrolling in benefits. You have to re-enroll. If I say that you had a baby and I sign off on it and then I log out of the system, doesn't magically add the baby to the coverage, right? So you have to actually go through the enrollment. Now, whether you as an HR person are completing that for your employees or whether you're processing it on your end and then saying, hey, this window has been open for you, you have 30 days, especially if it's a job class change. However, the enrollment happens could be different for everybody here, but the enrollment must happen. They have to go through and enroll in the coverage. Once they're at the end of it, then they have to sign off on the coverage, right? So the enrollment is not complete until a new confirmation statement is signed. So if they call you and say, hey, I added my baby and went to the doctor and there's nothing there, well, they probably had self-service life events, so you didn't approve anything in follow-up, so you'd know that they didn't enroll, but their confirmation statement, if it still says their benefits are effective for 1/1 and they just had a baby in July, you know that they didn't complete that part of it. So just making sure they understand, you have to enroll and you have to sign a new confirmation statement. And then step 3, this is where this is kind of where the conversation starts of, hey, life events, we need to make some updates, is as an HR user, reviewing the coverage tab to make sure that you like what you see there. Did it give them the new coverage? Is it showing the right effective date that you want it to show? Is it showing the right deduction date? If it's saying 9/1's effective date and it's supposed to be 8/1, then let's have a conversation and figure out why. And then we can fix that. And then we can fix the coverage for that employee record. But we have to do all 3 steps in order to make sure that we have kind of dotted all our I's and crossed all of our T's on there.
Lindsay mentioned checking the coverage tab. When I would go through and train new groups, I would always mention the coverage tab is your friend. Don't be afraid of going there and just double checking after your life event's done that the coverage is updated, the effective date's right. Make sure that looks great. I also Lindsay mentioned the events history tab. You've all who I've gotten to talk to recently has heard me say the life events or the events history tab gets me in trouble a lot with her. Because when a life event doesn't work and someone emails me, I'm like, oh, I'm smarter than the system. I'll figure this out. And then by the time I have to send it to her that it didn't work the way it should have, there's 7 different times in the event's history that's got my name next to it saying, trying to do this or that. So we truly mean when you get stuck in some stuff, don't be afraid to reach out and let your CSM know that you need some help or something's not operating right. And let's get in touch with the expert.
So remember when you're doing the enrollment part, this has come across my desk a lot lately. If you're signing off for the employee, sometimes we mistype our passwords, and the error message that comes up on Celerix that you've mistyped your password on a life event is not an accurate message, but it says you do not have authorization to sign this form. All the time, it's saying that I'm not allowed to do life events for my own employees. You for sure can, but that's a sort of a misleading message. So just if you're getting that message, it's because you're just typing in your password incorrectly. Has anybody done that? I do it all the time. The only other thing that I want to touch on for life events is life events that occur after open enrollment, but prior to a new plan year start. Somebody has a baby in December. We already enrolled in October. What do I got to do? The most important thing to remember is that you have to enroll in 2 plan years. 2 confirmation statements are going to need to be signed. The system's going to prompt you through it, and it's going to alert you and say, wait, you need to do this other plan year too. But some people skip it, don't do it. So if you have where a baby was born in December, you go through and enter it, and an employee could do it. They go through and they add the baby, and they have employee child coverage now, but they don't go through that second plan year. They're going to have employee child coverage until December 31st, and it's going to revert back to what they had when they went through open enrollment. So just making sure that if you have something that occurs, and it's inevitable, if you enroll in October, stuff's going to happen in November and December. Just making sure that you are enrolled in both plan years. So I went through and I added the child for 2021, and I've also added that child for 2022. And checking the coverage tab is going to be your indicator of, hey, we got this. It's taken care of. So really, it's just checks and balances. And you guys know how the end of the year is. You got everything else in the world going on. But just checking that will really make a difference.
And I hate to do this to you, but you have 5 minutes.
Well, that's good, because I was going fast before. Common issues, spouse loss coverage, and they're not listed as a dependent in the system. So maybe I just have carried employee only forever because my spouse is irrelevant. They have their own job, their own coverage. I don't want to buy any extra life insurance for them. What do I do? Because when I do the spouse changes employment status, I can't do anything, and I don't know what to do next. Sometimes you got to marry people and have that spouse show up, and then you got to do the life event. But remember, let's say you got married 15 years ago. I can do the marriage life event, complete it, add all the information, but because the date of the event was 15 years ago, it's not going to let me enroll anything. That's fine. Now we have our spouse there. Now we can do the spouse changed coverage life event on top of that. Now it exceeds the spouse, so now it's going to open up coverage for me. So sometimes you have to do more than one in order to get that. Same thing with if you have a dependent under 26 that lost coverage. Maybe they're new to the system, and or maybe they're a new hire. They didn't even bother putting their dependent on there when they first got hired. But now we got to add them because they lost their job and they need to be covered on mom and dad's until they're 26. So sometimes there could be multiple life events that needs to be done, but we also encourage your employees to add their dependents, even if they're not going to be covered on benefits for that reason. It makes your life a little bit easier.
You'll see a lot of communication pieces that we create. We bring your dependent information to your enrollment meeting, whether or not you plan on covering them. It's for this reason. It saves you guys a lot of time when you have to do these, my spouse lost their coverage life events, their spouse is there. It saves you time. So that's why we do that.
When should I use enable enrollment manually? Who uses that currently? I wish they would hide that from you guys. You have no idea. Enable enrollment manually is a way that we can add coverages if they did come see us on day 35, right? But here's the downfall of enable enrollment manually. When you check that box and you click next, you are saying, I don't care about any of the rules in the system. I'm going to make my own rules. And you are saying, I want to enroll in these plans. Here's when I want it to be effective. Here's how many days I want to have it open up to and be enrollable. And here's what I want to do. So you've taken everything that we've set up and you said, well, I want to do it this way instead. And there are times that we have to use that, no doubt. But there are times when you do that, that's my biggest ACA downfall, and the errors that come across is because people are doing enable enrollment manually and the codes, they're supposed to be in a waiting period, but you gave them coverage 2 months early. And that's where some of the errors come that we have to do that. And I understand we have situations all the time where this employee, we're going to allow them to have coverage on day one. Nobody else we ever have allowed that for. So we do have to make some manual adjustments on here. Or this boy's changing job class, but part of them changing into an executive was they got to do this a little bit different. So that does occur. But remember, when you are using that, you're saying, I don't want the system to follow the rules. I want to force it to do this. So that a lot of times can cause issues that we have to kind of go back and look at. But also you want their employee record to be reflective of what's actually happening. So if you just do enable enrollment manually when they have a baby, that's not really, it's not, what happens with that sort of stuff is it's not coding events to send to carriers correctly. Let's say, dependent age is off. Dependent turns 26. And so you just say, yeah, I'm going to enable enrollment manually and I'm going to kick this person off the medical. Well, enable enrollment manually doesn't have a code that sends over to a carrier to trigger that they should have COBRA notices. So now they're not getting notified for COBRA. And there's several examples. I wish I had a bunch more, but by using that, using the specific life event that you need to use is going to code so much more on the back end that you may not even realize it's affecting. So like your ACA coding when it goes over to carriers to trigger. Yeah.
I'm going to wrap up the last two with a question. Everyone knows now what to do if you have a question. All we want to do is help with, you have a big let us know what we can do to help you guys. Okay.
I would say, I understand that life events are a huge pain point. I think everybody here probably has come across like, why won't this just do what I want it to do? Or, why is this not working? It's a pain point for me too. And it's a pain point when I'm telling Solarix, this isn't working. It's not working how it's supposed to be working. But I know usually life events are based around where somebody needs coverage now. And that's why it's a pain point, because they've waited to the very last minute to come to you because they got to go to the doctor tomorrow and you need it. Their lack of preparation has kind of made your job a little bit more difficult. So when you're coming to us and it's, you're frustrated, we're definitely frustrated. I know this is a frustrating topic and I just feel like I wish that there was a way to fix it, but I don't know if there ever will be. Well, the employees may still not tell you they had a baby till day 35. So, I mean, Does anybody have any specific life event questions, even if it's for your own group?
You got 2 minutes.
Like I said, if you guys have a question, definitely reach out or stop me and we can chat about it and try to figure out what we need to do and we'll get it taken care of.
Thank you.